Recently, I went mudlarking with my good friend Nick Stevens. He is a member of the Society of Thames Mudlarks and is a co-founder and trustee of the Thames Museum, a charitable organization which is developing a new museum to display the vast collections of mudlarks. Nick was raised in Buckinghamshire and has been a keen bottle digger and fossil collector since he was a kid, spending family holidays along the Jurassic Coast. Based in London with his wife and 3 kids, he has worked as a professional photographer for the past 20 years, shooting an eclectic mix of musicians, families, animals, and archaeology. One of Nick's photos of Eddie Vedder from the band Pearl Jam was featured on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. I first met Nick back in 2013 when he was part of the popular TV show called Mudmen. He appeared in all 3 seasons of the show on the History Channel, alongside Mudlark Steve Brooker and radio show host Johnny Vaughan.
I'm Johnny Vaughan. I've struck brass, gang. And this is Steve Brooker, otherwise known as Mud God.
I actually want to change history.
He's one of a select group of licensed amateur archaeologists known as mudlarks, who scour the banks of the River Thames, searching not for buried treasure, but for hidden history, and whose discoveries have changed our understanding of London forever.
There's stuff in that mud that no one's ever seen before.
On the Thames foreshore lies over 2,000 years of history just waiting to be discovered. Mudmen. While Steve heads off for a bit of a lark, I'm going to check in with his right-hand man, Rock God, because I've heard a rumour he's had a brilliant find.
Just had a tin farthing up, which are rare as chicken's teeth.
Are they?
Yeah, James II, there was copper was not prevalent enough. Basically, there wasn't enough copper to mint the farthings and halfpennies. So what he did, tin was a lot cheaper, but they're always really worn because it's tin. It's a very soft material, so they always wear really easily. So if I was to find this on a field, it'd be in a lot worse condition than this. This is actually pretty good. Okay. And again, because the mud's anaerobic, it just prevents that deterioration.
So what else have you got in there? Looks good.
So lovely piece there, yeah.
More better mine.
Yeah.
Of course, GM's just had one up, and of course, his would have been about this large. Your one shows the beard, which his doesn't.
And then, an even bigger piece.
Hey, well,
look at the size of that.
This is bigger than
Imagine
GM's.
how big that would have been.
Like a small football, really.
Yeah, really, huge.
That's a massive one, yeah.
Right, some garnets. They're beautiful little things.
Size of that one?
I know.
Of course, what we can't really see here is, look at the colour on that.
Beautiful.
What's really strange there, nobody knows why they're there.
No one knows why they're there.
I mean, there's masses, there must be thousands. Did you see thousands?
Loads and loads of them down there, yeah.
What else you got?
A couple of nice little Victorian bottles.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Hey,
Poison bottles, yeah.
little poison.
Beautiful, eh?
Just check that out. Not to be taken. Why is it that colour?
Basically, because you'd have your medicine cabinet and lots of bottles of different bits and pieces, and you would have it coloured green, so you'd know that that was essentially, you know, poisonous, and you wouldn't drink it. This is the dangerous bit. What I don't want to do is to break it as I pull it out, because it's obviously very, very fragile, and the mud is really compacted tight around this pipe. Oh. See, I could use my trowel, but I'm actually just going to use my fingers here. Feeling pretty good. And there we go. Pretty good. So I reckon it's probably sort of mid-19th century. I think this could be a church warden's pipe, so that would have been around 36 inches long. So the end has been snapped off, but still, that's pretty good. I think that's been rolling around on the riverbed for about 150 years. Hey. So I've got a lot of Hamilton bottles in my collection, all glass. I've never, ever, ever found a stone one, but this is a stone Hamilton bottle, and it's got some writing on the side. Effervescing, ginger beer, unfermented. And then on the other side, wicked. Stoker, London. That's fantastic. So that would probably be, would be a ginger beer bottle, probably Victorian. So sort of 1880, that kind of age.
Mudmen.
Nick and I have been mudlarking many times together, and he seems to find something incredible every time. This time, Nick made an amazing discovery buried in the black mud of the Thames foreshore. Wow, it's a complete cod bottle. It's an absolute miracle that this fragile Victorian glass bottle wasn't broken after 100 years lying on the bottom of the river. The soft, dense mud fully encased the bottle and protected it from being smashed in the turbulent currents of the Thames. I still have never found a cod bottle myself, so I was very envious when Nick found this one.
So again, this is the type of bottle that us mudlarks always want to find. It's a very special type of bottle. It's called a cod bottle. Inside the neck here, I've not been able to clean this up yet, but when I get home and I give it a good clean up, I'm absolutely positive that there will be a glass marble inside. And that marble, when this was full of gassy drink, mineral water or ginger beer sometimes, that the bubbles, the gas would force this marble up into the rubber seal at the top, thus preventing the gases to escape. And when you bought the bottle, you'd have to knock the marble down, then you'd be able to have your drink. I've probably had about 3 or 4 cod bottles in my mudlarking time.
Since he began mudlarking in 2008, Nick has discovered some incredible artifacts along the River Thames. Many of these objects are thousands of years old. After we finished mudlarking, Nick showed me some of his best finds.
So, as a lover of fossils, when I spotted this, I could not believe it. Here we go. I don't know if it's pretty obvious to you. It was pretty obvious to me when I found it. It's very tooth-like. Strangely, I found it on top of a barge bed, which is a strange place to find such a fossil. When I got it home, did a bit of research, I discovered that it was a tooth from a shark, a prehistoric shark called a megalodon, which lived about 16 million to 2.5 million years ago. So pretty old. I wasn't sure if this was a native prehistoric creature. I thought perhaps these things only lived elsewhere in the world, but actually this creature, the megalodon, used to swim around the British coast all those years ago. It's quite worn. If you find them in excellent condition, they still have the serration on, but this is actually quite worn, obviously due to the River Thames. And my research sort of showed that it was washed out of the Essex clay, and it just kind of got washed out and washed down the river and thrown up onto this barge bed where I found it. It has such a beautiful patina on it. You'll have a close up in a little while, and you can see close up what it looks like. But this is my best fossil that I've ever found. I've found quite a few fossils, mostly sea urchins, sometimes bits of coral. But this is a complete one-off for the River Thames. Megalodon tooth. So my oldest handmade find is this, which is a handmade flint tool. It's called an adze, and the type and style is called a Thames pick. And the reason why is because this type of design is only ever found in the Thames Valley, and it's Mesolithic, and it's dates from about 8,500 years BC. So very, very old. When I saw this, I knew exactly what it was. This had been on my bucket list for quite a while. I always wanted to find a nice piece of worked flint, so when I saw it, I kind of knew exactly what it was. And I remember picking it up and just thinking to myself, wow, the last human being to have this in their hand would have been somebody that lived, 10,000 years ago, which kind of blows your mind really when you think about it. As to why it was in the river, obviously we'll never know, but it's quite possible that this might have been a votive offering, so sort of placed into the river, to the river gods, in the hope that, you might hope for good crop, healthy children, living a long life, whatever that sentiment might have been as to why it was placed in the river. Possibly it was accidentally dropped. Obviously, as I said, we'll never know. But it's such a tangible object to have it in your hand and feel it. It's very weighty, and and there it is, handmade flint adze from the River Thames. Roman coin. So we find lots of Roman coins on the River Thames. They're mostly quite worn, but now and again you can find one that's in really good condition, which this particular example is. And this is a coin of Hadrian. Dates from about 117 AD. And what's so special about this coin is that on the reverse we have Britannia. And this was the first use of Britannia on a British coin. It wasn't until many years later, until Charles II, around 1672, decided to use the Britannia again and put her on a farthing, 1672 Charles II. This was an amazing day when I found this. I was out with some friends who had some younger children, and I was trying to be enthusiastic and encouraging as to what we might be able to find. And we all got a bit bored, we'd not really found much, and then all of a sudden I saw this, just the loop sticking out the top of the mud, and I thought it was a key, so I gave it a pull and nothing happened, and instantly I knew what it was. So I gathered everybody around and I said, okay, I think I know what this is. I think this is a syringe. It might not be whole, but let's pull it out and let's see. So we pulled and literally this came out of the mud, and it's a syringe, but it's not any old syringe. This has a very specific purpose, and it's to cure syphilis. So this would have been filled with mercury and injected in a certain place, and the idea was that the mercury would actually kill the syphilitic disease. What they didn't realise actually was that injecting mercury into you did a lot more harm than good. Thanks to the Thames mud, the preservation of this artefact is exceptional, to the point where when I'd cleaned it out, I was able to simply unscrew it and the whole thing comes apart. It's only missing a little leather washer, which would have kept the seal inside so it could force out the mercury. Often administered by the ship's doctor, it was also self-administered, so you could treat yourself with the mercury, and it's still perfectly functional. It's Georgian, so about 1800, something like that, and in complete perfect condition. Syphilitic syringe. So this is probably my most famous find that I've ever found. Obviously I couldn't bring the bones with me today, but this is exactly what I saw on that particular day. This is what I saw staring up at me out of the mud. This skull. And it turned out to be a young child of about 12 years old, and carbon-14 testing dated her to around 1730. And initially I just found the skull, and very quickly I called the police, because that's what you do, and it took them quite a while to come down onto the foreshore. By that time the water had come in and covered up the skull, but luckily I'd put a marker in place, so I was able to go out and retrieve the skull from the riverbed, and that's all we thought there was. And the police said that they went back a couple of days later to see if there was any more bones, but said they couldn't find anything. So it was about a year later that I went back to the same spot with Natalie from Thames Discovery, and we were digging around in that area and we found a few more bones, which she was convinced were human bones. So she said we need to stop and we need to come back with some of her colleagues from Thames Discovery, which is what we did the next day. And we did a full excavation and managed to find the rest of this poor unfortunate person. In total we found about 97% of the bones for this poor child, which are now at the depot at Eagle Wharf Road. I've been to a few lectures where they've used the entire skeleton laid out in all the bones in the right order, and it's one of the best articulated skeletal remains ever found on the River Thames, and this is what I saw on that particular day.
If you want to see and read more about Nick's incredible finds, you can check out the new book, Thames Mudlarking, Searching for London's Lost Treasures, which Nick and I wrote together. The book includes over 160 color photographs of hundreds of historically important artifacts discovered by 50 mudlarks in London. Written chronologically, the book takes you on a journey through time. Each artifact gives you a unique glimpse into life in London over the past 2,000 years. The Thames Mudlarking book is now available on Amazon, Waterstone, Foyles, Barnes & Noble, Book Depository, and most online bookstores.